Welcome to Magic 101. Controlled fire in a wooden house. If you're watching this, you have clearance to work near SCP-15987 and Jasper under supervised conditions. This is not a fantasy lecture. This is how you avoid turning a normal workday into an incident report. Slide 1. Anti-Freakout Protocol. 1. Stop. Breathe. Inhale 4 seconds, hold 2, exhale 6. Repeat 3 times. 2. Hands visible, palms open, no gestures, no testing, no improvisation. 3. Speak 1 sentence, I am standing down, I need assistance. 4. Anchor to reality. Name your location, the date, and 1 physical sensation. 5. Remove the medium, put down the object. Step away from the circle or sigil, close the book. 6. Call it in, notify supervision. If unsure, assume it's an incident. If you can't explain what you're doing in plain words, you are not clear to do it. Slide 2. What magic means here. Magic is not a wish. It is a method. In Foundation terms, magic means a repeatable cause and effect process, using intent and pattern to push reality off its default track. Through a medium, like a gesture, symbol, object, word, or place. While paying a cost, time, strain, risk, attention. What it is not, good vibes, random miracles, or safe because it feels familiar. Working definition for this module, magic equals intent, plus pattern, plus medium, plus cost. Slide 3. The 4 ingredients. 1. Intent. What you're trying to make reality do, be specific. 2. Pattern. The shape of the action, words, math, ritual form, repetition, structure. 3. Medium. The thing that carries it, gesture, symbol, tool, place, substance, or focus object. 4. Cost. What reality takes in return. Time, fatigue, attention, risk, materials, consequences. Rule of thumb. If you remove 1 ingredient, you don't get safe magic. You get uncontrolled variance. Slide 4. Failure modes. Miscast, right intent, wrong pattern. Output is distorted, incomplete, or sideways. Bleed. The effect leaks into nearby systems, objects, people, rooms, memories, electronics. Backlash. Reality kicks back. You take the cost all at once. Shock, burn, nausea, fatigue, confusion. Attention. Something notices. Not always hostile, but always complicating. Rule. If anything feels too easy, assume attention and disengage. Slide 5. If they're casting, follow these rules. 1. Do not interrupt the pattern. Talking is fine. Touching, grabbing, startling is not. 2. Keep hands visible. Step out of the line of effect. Assume in front of them is a hazardous lane. 3. No helping, no improvising. Do not add symbols, objects, prayers, or commentary meant to boost results. 4. Watch for failure modes. Miscast, bleed, backlash, attention. 5. If something changes suddenly, call it. Say, stand down, reset, then back away. 6. If you can't explain what's happening, you are not cleared to stay. Exit the room and notify supervision. Slide 6. Foundation terms versus Rak and Jasper terms. Foundation terminology is designed for containment, documentation, and liability. Rak and Jasper's terminology is designed for use, survival, and lived experience. Examples. Anomalous effect means the thing reality actually did. Thaumaturgic medium means what carries the action. Cognitive hazard means this will mess with your head if you stare at it. Mimetic trigger means don't say that phrase out loud. Reality instability means the floor is bending. Important. Different words. Same phenomenon. Do not argue vocabulary during an active event. Pick the terms that help people stay alive.
Slide 7. Yes, yes, fireballs. Yes, fireballs exist. Yes, they are flashy. Yes, they feel powerful. No, they are not the point. Fire is easy. Control is hard. Stopping is harder. If the first thing you imagine is an explosion, you are already thinking too loudly. Magic is judged by what remains intact, not by what was destroyed. If you want spectacle, join the theater department. If you want results, slow down. Slide 8. Professor Speech number 1. Fantasy cosplay versus reality mechanics. Most people learn magic from stories, not from field manuals, not from controlled trials. Stories. Stories teach you poses. They teach you words. They teach you drama. They teach the camera angle. They teach the heroic pause. They teach you that if you say the correct thing with enough conviction, reality applauds and gives you what you wanted. That is not how this works. Stories are training wheels for the imagination. Reality is the bicycle. And reality has traffic. Here is the first correction. Reality does not care what you meant. Reality cares what you did. If you remember nothing else from this slide, remember this. Magic is judged by mechanics, not vibe, not aesthetics, not narrative satisfaction. When you walk into a room where magic is happening, your brain wants to label it like a movie scene. Fire means attack. A circle means ritual. A chant means spell. But those labels are decorative. Your job is to stop reading it like fiction and start reading it like a system. Mechanics questions. 4 of them. The ones on the slide. Ask them in this order every time until it becomes boring muscle memory. First, what is the intent? Not, what do you hope will happen? What are you trying to make reality do? Precisely. Protect this person is not precise. Prevent kinetic impact from crossing this threshold for 60 seconds is precise. Make the room safe is not precise. Reduce airborne particulates above 2 microns by 90% is precise. Intent is the target. If the target is vague, the result will be creative. And creative is a polite word for unpredictable. Second, what pattern is being executed? Pattern is the shape of the action. Words, math, repetition, symmetry, rhythm. Steps taken in a certain order. Pattern is what makes a working repeatable. It is the difference between a lock and a suggestion. People raised on stories assume the pattern is the performance. They assume the flourish is the engine. It is usually not. The engine is the structure under the flourish. And here is where cosplay gets dangerous. Cosplay copies the outside. Cosplay copies the pose, the tone of voice, the ancient-sounding syllables. But cosplay does not understand which part was load-bearing. So you end up with a beautiful replica of a bridge that collapses the first time you walk on it. Third, what medium is carrying it? Medium is the vehicle, the wire, the conduit, gesture, symbol, tool, place, substance, focus, object. If intent is the target and pattern is the lock, medium is the hand that turns the key. Medium matters because medium has properties. Some mediums amplify, some dampen, some leak, some remember. And some mediums are not just tools, some are invitations. A story will tell you, the staff is a staff. Reality will tell you the staff is a lightning rod with opinions. If you do not know the medium, you do not know what else is in the room with you. Fourth, what cost is being paid? Every story lies about cost. Stories either pretend there is none, or they make cost romantic. A nosebleed, a fainting spell, a tragic sigh. In reality, cost is bookkeeping. Time, strain, risk, materials, consequences, attention. Cost can be immediate, or it can be delayed. Cost can be paid by the caster, by the environment, or by someone who did not consent. And if you are not actively asking, what is the cost? You are volunteering to pay it, usually all at once, usually at the worst possible time. Now, let's talk about why stories feel so convincing. Stories are built to teach you emotional pattern recognition. They are good at making you feel the shape of a moment. They teach courage. They teach persistence. They teach meaning. But they are terrible textbooks for mechanism, because stories are not optimized for repeatability. They are optimized for spectacle. Cosplay aims for spectacle. Mechanics aim for repeatable results. That difference is not academic. It's the difference between this worked once and this works when someone is bleeding on the floor. It's the difference between a clever improvisation and a protocol that keeps people alive. Here is a practical test you can run on yourself. If you cannot describe the effect without mythology, you do not understand it well enough to use it. If the best explanation you have is, it's a blessing, it's a curse, it's a demon, it's fate, then you are still thinking in story language. Try again in plain words. What changed? Where? For how long? Under what conditions? With what side effects? Mythology can be useful for memory. It can be useful for warning labels. It can even be useful for negotiating with things that prefer poetry to paperwork. But mythology is not mechanism. And when people confuse the two, you get the most common workplace hazard in anomalous environments. Someone doing a beautiful thing for the wrong reason and being shocked when reality responds literally. So, when you see casting, do not ask if it looks right. Ask the 4 questions. What is the intent? What pattern is being executed and what medium is carrying it? What cost is being paid? Do that, and you will stop treating magic like a costume you can put on. You will start treating it like machinery you are standing next to. And machinery does not care if you look cool. Machinery cares if your hands are where they're supposed to be.
Slide 9. Ley lines and load-bearing reality. Think of reality like an old building. Most days it holds because the beams are intact. Ley lines are the load-bearing routes, places where change travels easier, farther and faster. Working near a ley line means less effort for the same effect, more bleed if you miscast, more attention if you overdo it. Rule: small work is safer than wide work. Sustained work is louder than instant work.
Slide 10. Gods and admin accounts. Let me be plain. A god is not a moral category. It is an access level. Some entities have permissions you do not. They can rewrite local rules. They can ignore normal costs. They can see you when you cannot see them. That does not make them right. It makes them powerful. Rule: do not bargain like an equal. Request terms. Set boundaries. Leave an exit. Slide 11. Professor speech number 2. Why I don't fix the world. Because I could, and that is the problem. People hear that and assume I'm being dramatic. They imagine vanity, or fear, or some moral hesitation. It isn't that. It's math. Reality is not a quiet place. It's a crowded room full of listeners pretending not to listen. Most of them are harmless. Some of them are hungry. A few of them are old enough to remember when the rules were softer. Large changes attract attention, not because the universe has opinions, but because patterns become visible. And the moment you become visible, you become legible. And when you become legible, you become ownable. Every solution becomes a beacon for the next predator. You think you're sending help. What you're actually doing is announcing, here is a new power source, here is a new method, here is a new name worth memorizing. And yes, sometimes the first predator is human. If I patch one city, 5 more demand the same. Not because they are evil, but because suffering is not polite. It multiplies, it schedules meetings, it writes petitions. It shows up at your door with a camera and a sob story and a list of names. If I cure one death, a war forms around my hands. Because once death is negotiable, everyone wants a seat at the negotiation table. Governments want it, religions want it, corporations want it. And the things that live behind those institutions, the ones wearing them like coats, want it even more. And then you get the real problem, not the miracle, but the economy that forms around it. Miracles do not arrive alone. They bring logistics, they bring worship, they bring theft, they bring people who decide that if you can do it once, you must do it again, forever, on demand, until you are not a person anymore, just a lever they pull. Even if I try to be careful, attention escalates. You heal a town, someone tracks the signature. You rebuild a bridge, someone copies the method. You stop a plague, something else notices the sudden absence of suffering and asks who dared to interrupt its meal. And if you think I'm exaggerating, here is your reminder. We work for an organization that exists because attention is lethal. Now let me be clear, I do not refuse out of cruelty. I refuse because I have watched the cost scale. The first miracle is expensive. The second is political. The third is a doctrine. By the 10th, you're not saving anyone. You're reorganizing reality around yourself. And reality resents monopoly. It balances its books eventually. Sometimes that looks like backlash. Sometimes it looks like bleed. Sometimes it looks like something ancient leaning closer, smiling, because you finally made yourself interesting enough to eat. So what do I do instead? I do what survives. Rule: help the person in front of you. Stabilize the room you are standing in. Do not rewrite the planet to prove you can. If you need a simpler version, if you want to do good, do it quietly. Do it locally. Do it in ways that do not advertise a new God has arrived. Because if the world learns you can fix it, it will not ask politely. And the world is not the only thing that learns.
Slide 12. Miracles, cure, revive, repair. Disclaimers. Let's be extremely clear about what we mean by miracle in this module. A miracle is not help. It is not being nice. It is not a vibe. A miracle is high-impact biological correction. You are reaching into a living system and telling reality, no, that injury did not happen, that damage does not count, that death is negotiable. Cure a human, revive a human, repair a human. Those are acts of grand magic. And here is the part people always misunderstand. A miracle can leave society untouched and still leave the person changed. If you regrow a lung, the patient still remembers suffocating. If you restore a spinal cord, the brain may not accept the body as back. If you bring someone back from flatline, you have not erased the reasons they died. Miracles do not delete history. They do not refund trauma. They do not undo consequences that already propagated outward. Now, disclaimers. 1. Side effects and complications. Restoration can be messy. Scar tissue may return in new forms. Immune systems may treat the fixed tissue as foreign. Pain can persist even when the injury is gone. 2. Cost. Not just energy, not just fatigue. Cost includes attention. Cost includes instability. Cost includes secondary effects in the room, in the equipment, in the people nearby. 3. Repairs are imperfect. Restored does not always mean original. It means functional enough to stop the emergency. And 4. Fixed does not mean healthy. If you revive someone, they still need follow-up care. If you cure something, you still monitor for relapse. If you repair something, you still check what else broke when the body adapted to the damage. So the rule for miracles is simple. Do not treat miracles like an ending. Treat them like the beginning of a very careful, very boring medical chart. Because if you don't respect that part, you will create patients who look fine on the outside and collapse the moment the adrenaline wears off. Slide 13. Miracles. Weapons demonstrate risks. A miracle applied as a weapon destroys everything in set radius, turns a person into a weapon, demonstrates risks. This can be used for destruction. This can escalate a conflict, demonstrates why we don't do this. Slide 14. Why the Foundation limits miracles. Miracles are not forbidden because they fail. They are limited because they work too well. Every miracle leaves a trace. Every trace invites attention. Attention escalates. Unchecked intervention creates patterns. Patterns attract predators, rivals, and gods. The Foundation's role is not to save the world once. It is to prevent the need to save it again. Rule. Contain outcomes, not intent. Minimize signal. Leave reality boring enough to survive.
Slide 15. Jasper Lecture, the cost ledger. Here is the part people miss. A miracle is not a moment. It is a ripple that keeps traveling. You cure a body, and that is real. But the life around that body keeps moving on the old tracks. Their job still exists. Their debts still exist. Their abuser might still be in the hallway. Their grief might still be inside the people who watched them die. Their second chance might land right back in the same machine that crushed them the first time. So when you use cure, revive, or repair, do not tell yourself you fixed it. You performed an intervention, and interventions have consequences. The Foundation likes clean language, successful restoration, stabilized condition, return to baseline. Those phrases are for paperwork. Reality does not read our paperwork. What reality does is accounting. A miracle changes the balance. Sometimes the balance is physical, sometimes it's social, sometimes it's mimetic, sometimes it's something you only notice later, when the bill arrives. The bill can look like a complication in the patient, a pattern forming around the healer, copycat attempts from witnesses, a new rumor spreading through the site, or attention from something that loves bright events. So the correct mindset is not, I can do this. The correct mindset is, if I do this, what else have I started? Rule of practice. If you attempt a miracle, you also commit to follow through. You do aftercare, you do observation, you do containment of information, you do psychological stabilization, you do social stabilization if it's within your authority. And if it is not within your authority, you escalate, because a miracle without follow-through is not kindness. It is a spark thrown into dry grass, then walking away because the flame looked pretty. Slide 16. Jasper Q&A short answers. Question 1. Is healing always loud? Answer, no. But the bigger the correction, the louder the pattern. If you don't know how loud it was, assume it was loud. Question 2. Can I revive someone if I saw them die? Answer, not your call in the moment. Secure the scene, stabilize the room. Call medical, call supervision. A heroic impulse is not clearance. Question 3. What if it's my friend? Answer, then you are compromised. That does not make you bad. It means you need oversight. Question 4. What if I'm sure I can do it safely? Answer, certainty is not a safety device. Procedure is a safety device. Question 5. Why do you keep saying attention? Answer, because attention is the part that scales. A small act can be small. A repeated act becomes a signal. A famous act becomes a beacon. Question 6. What do I do if someone begs me? Answer, you do the next correct step. You do not do the biggest possible step. You can be compassionate without being reckless. Question 7. How do I know if I'm making it worse? Answer, if the effects start spreading, repeating, echoing, or pulling witnesses toward it, stop. Hands visible. Step back, call it in. Final rule, help the person in front of you. Stabilize the room you're standing in, and do not rewrite the world to prove you can.
Slide 17. Triad debrief. Okay, let's make this practical. People are going to hear all of this and still ask the same question. When do I step in?
When the work is small enough that reality doesn't start humming your name.
And when you have follow-through, not hope, not confidence, follow-through.
Right, if you can't describe what happens after the effect, you don't have a plan, you have a wish.
Most heroic mistakes are just unexamined scale. They reach for the big lever because it feels clean. Big lever, big story, big gratitude.
And then the cost arrives like weather, not personal, not moral, just physics, but stranger.
So, here's the Foundation translation. You stabilize the person, you stabilize the environment, you stabilize information flow, then you write it down. Because if we can't repeat it safely, it's not a tool, it's an accident.
And you do not improvise just to help. If you want to help, use the approved pattern. Use the approved medium. Pay the cost you can afford.
And stay. If you heal someone and then vanish, you didn't finish the work. You left a hole shaped like a miracle in the middle of their life.
Which becomes dependency, or panic, or worship, or resentment, or all four, in rotation.
If you want a rule you can carry in your pocket, do the smallest thing that keeps someone alive, then stop.
Then watch, then care for the aftermath.
And if you can't explain the plan in plain words, you are not cleared to execute it.
Magic is not bravery. Magic is procedure under pressure. Slide 18. End. This module is not here to make you powerful. It is here to keep you alive. Magic is controlled fire in a wooden house. You can cook dinner with it. You can also burn down everything you meant to protect. So remember the 4 ingredients: intent, pattern, medium, cost. Keep your work small. Keep it explainable. Keep your hands visible and your exits closer than your pride. When in doubt, stand down. Call it in. Document what happened. Recover. Return to baseline. And if you ever feel it getting easy, getting smooth, getting eager, assume something is listening. End of module.